Hi, Nicole. This is Linda. Thank you so much for submitting your essay. I've gone through and done some written reviews, which you'll find my comments over here. And I suggest that you click on View Feedback so that you can read them. But I also wanted to provide you with this audio-visual review just because I think it feels a little bit nicer to hear my voice. First of all, I want to compliment you on your organizational structure. I like how you have gone from kind of this flashback orientation of looking back over your life. And you're not that old, you're only 17, which is remarkable for all that you have accomplished. But I like that you are kind of doing this reverse chronological order. Well, I mean, it's chronological, but you've got a different kind of a structure to it, and I find that really interesting. I also so let me orient you a little bit with what I've done. The red marks are, or the reddish marks are, parts that I think are maybe awkward, or the word choice is not quite right, or there's some sentence problems or grammar or spelling, something like that. I haven't caught everything, but I wanted you to kind of get an idea of sentences that you might want to revisit. The parts that are outlined in green or highlighted in green are the parts that I think relate to the main idea of your essay. And so what I've done is kind of go through and highlight those things I think are the most important things for the reader to know about you and about this particular literacy of being able to ride and work with horses. And I really feel like it's very strong here in this second to last or maybe third to last paragraph, or maybe, let's see, maybe not. It's here in the latter part of the paper on page 4. I really feel like the main ideas come out, which is nice because that's kind of how it works in a literacy narrative. Is unlike other essays, you don't like start off with this really strong thesis necessarily. You start off more of in a storytelling mode, and then you work towards that big idea. Now, in terms of the growing part of this paper, the green parts are all kind of separated out. I'd like to see you kind of pull these together into a powerful conclusion. You've got me a little stumped here with this conclusion about this is a lesson I've taken with me to my writing and personal qualities I have gained and applied to my work ethic. I get what you're doing because you're taking what you've learned from horses and saying it's gone beyond just horses, but it's part of your whole identity now and part of your life. I understand that. But just on a writing level, as a reader, you haven't mentioned writing at all in this essay until this very last paragraph. And it comes off as a little bit awkward. And the comment that I made over here is that this is the first time that you've mentioned writing, and I get that you're making the connection to literacy, but remember that literacy is an area of competency. It's not just reading and writing. And so what I am taking away from your essay is that your area of competency is horses and the world of horses and what it takes to ride a horse, what it takes to take care of a horse, and hopefully what it's going to take to breed horses and to be part of that professionally. So if you added this in because you felt like you had to make sure that you got that literacy piece in, you don't need to do that. It's coming across really strongly in the rest of your essay. So I would review your conclusion. Other than that, I think that it's pretty good. There are sentence problems. I guess the only other thing that I would say that is kind of awkward for me and probably a little bit stylistic, I've highlighted here every time that you've said the little girl, this little girl, and you're doing this kind of third person narrative. Let's see, where's my comment on that? Well, anyways, this third person narrative, and then you shift to first person at the end, in the middle, is interesting, but it's not really working because you have a lot of subject and verb agreement problems. When you do the third person narrative and then you're using kind of present tense verbs, there are some places, and you have to kind of look through this with a fine-tooth comb, or like have other people read it with you, where the verbs that you're using are sometimes past tense and sometimes they're sometimes present tense, and so that's a problem. It's confusing for the reader. When you do this type of storytelling, you have to be careful with your verbs. You have to use the right kind of verbs, or it just doesn't work. It comes off as kind of awkward, and it's just hard for the reader to follow. It's my preference that you don't do that. My preference would be that you just write in the first person. I think it's more dynamic in a narrative. I think it's more interesting and more personal. Now, that is a choice of style, so you can disagree with me. But if you're going to choose the third person, you have to go back and check those verbs. There are a lot of verb issues going on, and you need to use more interesting verbs. And when you say this little girl, that little girl, this little girl, that little girl, it becomes really redundant and a little bit tiring to read that. So you've got to come up with different ways to say the same thing. Does that make sense? So it's not a critique in a negative way. It's just a stylistic thing, and I think what you're doing is trying to push yourself to a higher writing form, which is awesome, but it's not really successful yet in this draft. So if you're going to redo that, that's going to take some extra work on your part. And you have two choices. You can either go first person completely through the whole narrative, or you can do this third and first person choice, but that's a harder road to travel. I'll just let you know that for sure. Okay? All right, I'm done. I'll talk to you later. Good luck. Bye-bye.